Football addictions, the power two. Sheesh, I can't even do the right name here, but the power two on college football addiction. Man, 2 times in 1 week. Y'all are going to get sick of me, but here we are back to talk more football. Guys, games tomorrow. I've said this a couple of times on other shows. If last week was like your appetizer, what's your favorite appetizer? So I was a big fan of the Outback cheese fries back in the day. Do you have a go-to appetizer out, boys?
That's a great question. I was just in Maryland visiting some friends in Annapolis, and crab dip on a soft pretzel. It's not my favorite, but it's just like the one that's coming to mind necessarily.
Look, growing up in Texas, chips and queso with good salsa right
Simple.
there. Good.
Yeah.
It's simple. It's right to the meal. I will say I'm a big potato skins dude. I am. I love my carbs. I do. That is my guilty pleasure. Like people, they have their vices. It's gambling. It's alcohol. It's drugs. For me, it's potatoes. Like I cannot get enough potato chips. I love fries. Yes. You throw me a potato, like I can promise you, the reason I'm never going to be getting a 6-pack back in the rest of my life, I can't cut out that carb. It's the one thing that I have to indulge in. Baked potato, fried potato, whatever it is. It's something about it. It's just great. It's my ancestry, people. Nearly killed us in Ireland, but still now I'm killing me every day.
Love potatoes. The problem is not for me so much the potato. It's either the pound of butter or the cheese or the bacon or all the above that I put on the potato. The potato itself, like you could get by with just eating potatoes, but like when you deep fry them and layer them in as much cheese, when your cheese to potato ratio is a 1-to-1, it becomes a pretty big problem for me. So anyway, all that said, if last week was an appetizer, this week really is like a 64-ounce ribeye, like bone in, like just absolute. I love it, not just because college football is back, so we would have loved anything, but I can't remember a year where there are so many intriguing week 1 matchups. And I know there's a lot of usually pretty good week 1 matchups. We got Clemson LSU, we got USC LSU. We've gotten good stuff. Georgia Clemson, even though that didn't turn out really well. Utah and Florida a few years. Like I'm just going down the list in my mind. Like we've gotten some good stuff here and there. Truly all weekend, there's great stuff. Even when you get to Monday night typically reserved for the NFL. We've got a former NFL coach coaching in that one too. So like it just truly is all weekend. Friday night's got 2 classics, both of them featuring a Big 12 team, which I am all for. Even Thursday night, you get to see Raiola and stuff. So yeah, a lot of fun. Excited for it. Here in Tampa, USF plays Boise State. I thought about going, but
that's a good one.
Yeah, being out of town all weekend, I didn't even bring it up to my wife. I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to ask, but I will tune in and watch USF and Boise State.
Let's be real. Tomorrow is the side salad that comes before the 60-ounce.
It is
4-ounce porterhouse, which I'm okay with. And by the way, it's a good side salad.
It is.
As you mentioned, Boise State, USF. We got Mizzou breaking in a brand new quarterback or 2 new quarterbacks. You got Nebraska and Dylan Raiola going to Dylan Raiola's big brother's house in Kansas City to face off against Cincinnati. I mean, like, it's a good week. And then you get to throw in, of course, the Friday night game as well, which are going to be 2 incredible matchups, 2 that we're actually going to talk about today on the show.
Let's jump into it, boy. So I'm excited. How do you guys get your steaks medium rare since we talked about ribeyes just real quick, or how do you order?
I was at a steakhouse last night. Yes, I got it medium rare.
Rare. Always get the rare.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, I don't have a problem with going to rare. I'm typically medium rare unless it's a prime rib. So that's where I'll dive into the rare waters. All right, enough food talk because again, have to do that I guess a little bit. We'll ban the food talk. What we won't ban is Dave Portnoy from the show. If he'd like to come on at any point, we would be more than happy to welcome his services. We'll let Tom start off here. Tom's got some takes. Portnoy banned from Ohio State. Ohio State comes out and says, no, we didn't do it. That's not what happened. And Portnoy, in one of his famous emergency press conferences, says, yeah, I'm calling BS on this. Like, don't, just own it. Tom, take it away.
Yeah, Portnoy went out there and said, yeah, that's exactly what happened. You guys know me at this point. I'm always about what's the PR that comes out of a move like this. And I will also be very honest before I begin this. You see what hat I'm wearing. I'm a Penn State guy. I'm a Pennsylvania guy. I have lived an entire life as a fan, banging my head against the ceiling that is Michigan football and Ohio State football within the Big Ten. So my biases are there. Great, fine. This is one of the softest things that I can remember. And this just adds to the pile of baby poop soft stuff that you have seen from Ohio State for a while now. And this is the reigning national champion in college football. 9 claimed national championships, because you have to mention that now, apparently. Thanks, Auburn. Listen, the fact that they banned Portnoy, it opens up Pandora's box in my mind. Is Michigan going to ban Kirk Herbstreit? Is Florida State going to ban Kirk Herbstreit at some point?
Go.
There's one. Who are we going to start banning at this? So it's like, okay, if you are a particularly loud fan with a platform, we don't want you in there. And also, let's not forget, members of the Ohio government tried to pass legislation within the past year to ban flag planting and try and make it a crime after what happened last year when Michigan beat Ohio State at the shoe. And it was just so funny because we were just talking about on this show earlier on this week how sensitive the Michigan fans were. The fact that we were like, yeah, they could go 8-4 and that would be a good season. No, there's no way. These are the back-to-back national champions in Michigan and Ohio State. And ironically, it's the biggest rivalry in college football. And they might be the 2 softest fan bases in college football all at the same time. Listen, if you're Ohio State, shut up. You won everything. You're on top of the mountain. Cole, you're an Alabama guy and you cover the SEC. What does Alabama do 9 times out of 10? They show up and they put their dick on the table because we're Alabama. We don't have to do anything real special, do we? Part of this is Dave Portnoy. Part of this is Barstool Sports. And I understand that. It's a polarizing person and it's a polarizing platform. It's a mainstream platform. Dave Portnoy is one of the larger voices. All you did was create a PR nightmare that's going to continue now, and it's going to make Dave Portnoy and Barstool and Michigan more money. You idiots. So I am stunned. I'm not stunned at the same time. This is like kind of what you would expect a little bit from Ohio State. So I am now rooting for Dave Portnoy. I'm not rooting for Michigan, to be clear. As a Penn State guy, I just can't bring myself to do it. But whatever Dave Portnoy and Barstool Sports have to say into eternity now about Ohio State, I am all on board. I am a fan. I am on their side. And here's the best part is that's going to rile up Michigan fans that go to any future Ohio State game. If he is on the outside of the stadium and he's not allowed in, imagine what he's going to say. Like, he's still going to have this enormous megaphone of a platform where he can talk about all this stuff. So Ohio State, this is one of the weakest things I can remember in PR within this sport. Look in the mirror, realize who you are. You're the LA Lakers of college football. You don't need to do this stuff. Come on, man.
I want to go to Cole, but one thing that I think is really funny is now it's not the same as the Cracker Barrel thing, but it reminds me of like the marketing move that was the Cracker Barrel thing, where now I was not thinking at all before this matchup. I wonder what Dave Portnoy thinks about this game.
Exactly.
That wasn't on my radar. Now, if I'd have seen, I follow him on all the social medias. If I'd have seen it, I'd have watched it like I do most of his content because it is intriguing and entertaining. But now the number one thing that I want to see after this game, besides a Florida State win because it happens 30 minutes later, but the number one thing that I want to see after this game is Portnoy's response. Win, loss, draw, whatever. Obviously can't tie. But I want to see what Portnoy has to say. And God forbid Texas goes up there and wins this game in the shoe. Portnoy's reaction will do better numbers than the actual game itself. It will be insane. However, if Ohio State would have done this, if they just would have let him in the game and it had just been another guy in the stadium, nobody would have given it a second thought. Ohio State fans would have been like, how'd you let him in? This, that, and the other. But could you imagine the surrender cobra that could have happened from Dave Portnoy inside the stadium if Ohio State was up in the fourth quarter in this game? Like, that would have been memed times a million. And so, again, it's rivalry stuff. Yeah, is it soft? Is it? Yeah, I think it's a little soft. But even whatever, it's a good rivalry troll for Ohio State. I think I'll give them that. But man, now all of the attention is going to be on Portnoy, which is exactly what he wants at all times. So I don't know. He should do a pizza review of like an outside vendor or something while the game's going on. That, I don't need to tell this guy how to market, but I don't know. Just hilarious. And that was sparked to my mind when Tom was talking. Cole, I'll shut up and let you go.
I don't have much to say on this. For me personally, I love this for one main reason. I hate this because it is a PR nightmare. It is an absolute devastation toward what is going to be now all of our fixation on Saturday. Because remember, this also feels like a little bit of a publicity stunt because of who else is going to be inside of the walls of Ohio State, making a big time announcement for the final time of his career. I want to know, Lee Corso putting on the headgear one last time. But the new generation is going to be so fixated on what does Dave Portnoy think about him live tweeting from what's going on outside the venue. But the reason I do love this, it's college football. It goes past just the actual ramifications of the on-field game. This is, we do not like Michigan. We do not like this Michigan alum. We cannot stomach the fact this Michigan alum is going to say horrendous things about us inside our own building. Therefore, we're going to prevent it. It's childish, it's pedantic, but let's be real. A lot of the traditions that we have, a lot of the rivalries, a lot of the pure disdain and hatred that we have when it comes to college football is childish and pedantic. So we're embracing what is this torment of our entire lives of us not liking one opponent and certainly not liking their fan base and keeping them from the outside looking in. Is it an absolute travesty that we will not have now Dave Portnoy on the sidelines? Yes. Is it also one of the best things that could happen in terms of what ratings would do? Yes. And certainly from a standpoint of Fox's perspective, when it really comes down to Ohio State, if they were to lose this game, the reaction of Dave Portnoy, who's not attached to the program, he's his own entity, is going to draw in massive numbers. Yes. But in the standpoint of what is college football at its finest, rivalries that carry a lot of animosity and pure disdain, this is the epitome of why Ohio State and Michigan is built to another level. You can talk about the rivalry between Texas and Oklahoma. You can talk about the rivalry between Army and Navy. We could talk about the rivalry between Catholics versus convicts, because we're about to do that. But there's nothing like the game that plays between Columbus and Ann Arbor, including the fan base, including the media spotlight, to when if you say anything negative about the program, you're going to get the comeuppance. My only question is, who's going to be the Ohio State fan that's banned at a Michigan game later on this season, therefore not allowing them to come on in? Are we going to watch as Urban Meyer is no longer allowed to go to Big Ten games in Ann Arbor because of how many times he beat them? That's just going to be my 2 cents of the word. I'm not pulling for Michigan, not pulling for Ohio State. What I can appreciate is that this is pure college football disdain and rivalry at its finest.
Just to cap this off, TJ, not to cut you off. Remember, Dave Portnoy and Barstool Sports are one of the reasons why Bryce Underwood is at Michigan. They are actively funding Michigan football in a direct or roundabout way. You just lit more fire under Dave Portnoy and Barstool to fuel Michigan football into the future. So great job.
It would be, first of all, it would be hilarious if they didn't let in, Urban. It would be funny if they banned the mascot. But a better troll, if any Michigan, people are watching, a better troll is for Dave Portnoy to be an honorary captain and literally flip the coin when Ohio State is in the big house later this year. So listen, they don't pay me to do marketing here, but that is what you should do. And I'm not even asking anything. Maybe sideline passes for that game. But if you really want to do something, Portnoy is an unofficial captain for the game, walks out there with the captains when Michigan takes on Ohio State this year. So that would be my wish.
All to cap off an 8-4 Michigan season,
which may include a win in that last game. The way that
rivalry, we'll give it to you guys. I feel better now.
Mad at Ohio State, so we've upped our win total to 8.75 for you guys. Let's go down to South Florida and talk about Miami and Notre Dame. Good question here. More confidence in Carson Beck over CJ Carr, or the opposite would be in Marcus Freeman over Mario Cristobal? I think both those things can be pretty accurate. Cole, I'll let you start on this one.
I think Carson Beck over CJ Carr just because I know what I'm getting in Carson Beck. That doesn't mean that he is going to be perfect. Doesn't mean that he's going to end up lighting up the stat sheet, but I know what I'm getting in him. Keep in mind that if we see the version of Carson Beck from 2023, we are getting a quarterback that is going to be potentially back in the running for a Heisman Trophy, back in the running for a college football playoff bid, maybe even the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. Because remember the narrative that was going into Athens for 2024. This kid, this talent, this offense, going to be special. And what proceeded to happen? Well, the turnover started to stockpile on up. Georgia led the country in drops. They didn't have this same offensive line. And Carson Beck decided to have a couple of big-time miscues that ultimately led to a 10-2 finish before he ended up losing his arm in the second half of the SEC championship. But still, He's going into an offense that I do believe is going to be very potent. It's going to be very promising. Shannon Dawson knows how to bring out the best version of quarterbacks, and I do think that is a balanced thing to really benefit a guy like Carson Beck. He's going to be behind, in my opinion, one of the best offensive lines in the country. It's not the best ACC line. It's not the best line in the state of Florida. It's just a good offensive line. It's a very solid unit up front, headlined by 2 players that are going to be top 32 picks in next year's NFL draft. The thing that I wonder about is, what are we going to get from this wide receiver room? Because that is the big separation from last season. It's not just Cam Ward is gone, but like 6 of the top 7 playmakers from a season ago either transferred or they're in the NFL. So what are we going to get from CJ Daniels? What are we going to get from Tony Johnson? What are we going to get from Keelan Marion or Joshua Moore or Chance Robinson or Josiah Trader? What are we going to get at that tight end position now with Elijah Lofton or Alex Bauman coming on in from Tulane? A really under the radar move. Because if those things all click, then even if you don't trust your run game entirely, which I do, I really like Jordan Lyle. I think that he's going to be a phenomenal player by the season's end. I do think that Mark Fletcher is going to be your lead back going into this game. If you see the passing attack take that next step forward and you're not watching drop balls, it's very hard for me to say the intangibles that you have with the guy in Carson Beck could all still be there to where it just needs to be the right system for him to flourish. And I don't know what I'm getting in CJ Carr. Doesn't mean I don't think that CJ Carr doesn't have good weapons. In fact, I think for my money, the most underrated overall offensive arsenal at the wide receiver spot is Notre Dame going into this year. But I also don't know what I'm getting with CJ Carr. I trust Marcus Freeman, though, over Mario Cristobal. That's what this really comes down to. So either side wins. I know what I'm getting in that defense. I think this is going to be one of the better offensive lines that we talk about by the season's end in South Bend. A lot of people had questions about this offensive line last year, and it was the backbone to one of the best rushing attacks in college football over the last 5 seasons. And it's going to be the same unit once again taking control this year. They're not replacing almost anything in the trenches. So another good set. I trust that. I trust the defense more than I trust Mario Cristobal, especially in clock management situations. We saw what happened last year in the Virginia Tech game. We saw what happened last year in the Cal game. We saw what happened last year against Georgia Tech. We saw what happened against Syracuse. You don't have those moments when it comes to Marcus Freeman. Doesn't mean that Marcus Freeman is going to walk away with a win in Hard Rock Stadium, but I trust Marcus Freeman a little bit more than I trust Mario Cristobal. However, I do trust Carson Beck more than I trust CJ Carr.
The one thing I'll give to Miami, and it pains me anytime I do this, but I do try to be really objective with this. I agree fully on Freeman over Mario, and that's not even Mario hate. I think Freeman can most of the time coach circles around just about anybody in college football. He is that good on game day. I do have a lot of confidence in Shannon Dawson, and I have a lot of confidence in Heatherman too. So if Mario, my confidence in him would be him getting out of the way in a lot of situations. If he can do that, which is hard for a guy like him. It's hard for a guy who has this aura or has this presence or has this macho kind of personality that Mario certainly has. It's hard to humble yourself and pull a Dabo and be a CEO and let your coordinators do what they need to do. If he can do that, I think the coaching advantage for Notre Dame is minimized some. Now, at the end of the day, though, clock management situations, you ain't relying on Dawson to figure that out. You ain't relying on Heatherman to figure that out, right? End of game situations, personnel situations, a lot of times in crucial moments, that's going to fall on the head coach. And so I think from a game perspective, that can be minimized because I really like Miami's coordinators. But I do think in those crucial moments, when the money's on the line, it's a big deal for Mario to step up and have to do the right thing. And that's where I certainly would have more confidence in Freeman. Not even an anti-Mario agenda there. It's Freeman is really, really good at it. Tom, what are your thoughts on this game?
I do focus a lot on Carson Beck on this, and I you guys know me. I like to stick with what do you know versus what you don't know. We don't know very much about CJ Carr, how he's going to look within this offense. You do know that Notre Dame's going to run the hell out of the football. They had some critical pieces along the offensive line that they lost out of the transfer portal, injury, graduation, that sort of stuff. So I'm curious to see what they look like. The irony for Notre Dame returning to the site of the semifinal last year where they defeated Penn State, one of the biggest wins in program history, got themselves to the national championship game, which a lot of people early on last year did not expect. So there is that veteran core to this team that is going to remember that and come in with a lot of intention and intensity in this game, especially on defense. I think you have a year of maturation for guys like Love and Greathouse who became playmakers. Love was a playmaker all season, but Greathouse certainly broke out in the back end of last season. So I think CJ Carr is a comfortable situation for Carson Beck. yeah, I understand there's a quarterback-friendly system, but Cam Ward and Carson Beck are two completely different beasts in this situation. And let's not forget, when Carson Beck was at his best 2 years ago, healthier, he had a dominant, monster offensive line, a stout running game, and then he had two wide receivers or tight end and wide receiver pass catchers in Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers, who could kill you down the seams. That was where they made their money, on play action pass. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be his thing this year. He is confident. He feels like he can put the ball anywhere, and sometimes his processing suffers when that happens. Will Miami's threats in the passing game be able to complement him the same way that he was complimented a few years ago in Athens? And will the running game be there to support Beck? So that's what I'm paying attention to.
Now, I like Miami's. Go ahead, Cole. I like Miami's running game a ton.
Well, I was going to say is let's flip it real fast and talk about the overall offense for Notre Dame. Last season, they hired Mike Denbrock. Denbrock worked with Jaden Daniels down in LSU, and they had the number one scoring offense in the country, number one passing offense in the country. You had a quarterback that was a run-oriented quarterback first in Riley Leonard. Now you get CJ Carr. For my estimation, he may end up being the best quarterback we've seen come through Notre Dame in over a decade, if not longer. We could have to go all the way back to maybe the Brady Quinn era for how good of a player people talk about CJ Carr. I think that adds another element to it, because if you are getting a better passer, you are getting somebody who I think is going to elevate that vertical presence downfield. And the bottom line is that we don't know a lot about the wide receiver room for Notre Dame. Here's what we do know. Jaden Greathouse is back, and he's awesome. But they also have Jordan Faison. They brought in Malachi Fields from Virginia. They have Will Pauling coming on in from Wisconsin. They really like the redshirt freshman Cam Williams. So this is an opportunity to where the offense that we saw 2 years ago down in Baton Rouge that catapulted LSU into the 10-win range once again with Brian Kelly could be on display in South Bend, and it's a better defense. So that's something that you have to throw in your back pocket. It's an unknown with CJ Carr, but the unknown here is that if he ends up being even remotely better as a passer than what we saw last season, with how much returning production they have in South Bend, plus the explosive running of not just Jeremiah Love, but also Jadarian Price, who we don't talk about enough. He'd be just a starter alongside most people in college football if he wasn't splitting carries with, in my opinion, the best running back in the sport. There's a lot to like about this offense taking that next jump forward. You don't have to rely heavily on your defense. And then to counteract this real fast, we have no idea what Corey Featherman's going to be for this defense down in Miami. But here's what I can tell you. If it's anything like it was at Minnesota, it's going to be physical. It's going to make you have to stop the run. You are going to have to win through the air, which is a recipe for disaster for Notre Dame breaking in a new quarterback in week one. And if you look at the way that they attacked the portal this offseason, I really do think that Miami's defense is going to be miles ahead of what it was a season ago. It is eerily similar to what we saw 2023 LSU. Offensively last year, they could do anything and find a way to win. Defensively, it cost them a spot at the national title. I don't think it's going to be at that vicinity, but maybe it's circa 2024 LSU. It's so much better that you can at least see the direction going in the right path.
This definitely feels like a game where they will try and ground and pound on both sides. I've got a lot of confidence in both offensive lines, both running attacks. As good as Notre Dame's is, I think Miami's got a three-headed monster down there that's really, really good too. Anthony put a comment in about the tight ends. I do like Lofton a lot. I like Bowman came out of the portal, right? I really have a lot of confidence in that Notre Dame secondary, which I think is top 10 in the country, maybe top 5 by the end of the year. And so I wonder if Miami's not able to open up that running game like I know they want to, and Mario wants to pound the rock. Like that is certainly going to be his MO in this game, to try and get things opened up. Does Carson try to play hero ball with unproven, very talented, but unproven wide receivers? Do they try and feature the tight ends a little bit more? How successful are they against Notre Dame's really good secondary? Some of the best shutdown corners that you've got anywhere playing there for the Irish. I just wonder if Miami's not able to go to their first option, which I think will be running the ball. What will that do for the second option? If they are able to go to their first option, obviously everything flows from that, right? The secondary's got to creep up. Are they able to get some big shots over the top? I think that's a big question for me. My biggest concern, I would think, for this game is probably if Miami's secondary has taken enough of a leap, if there's good enough communication in week one with a lot of guys from the portal, can they figure it out that early in the year, right? I have no real doubts that Miami's secondary will be leaps and bounds better than it was last year by game 3, 4, 5, 6, and beyond in this season. Is it too much to ask them to get it all in week 1 against a team that was, again, in the national championship last year? And again, I have less worry about Notre Dame's rushing attack. I think that will be up and ready to go, and they'll be able to lean on that because of how talented those guys are. So that's my concern for Miami. The concern for Notre Dame is can the young kid get out there and do it week 1 when the lights are the brightest, right? Can he do it in South Florida? Like, we can make all the jokes about Miami's attendance. They'll pack it out, right? For week 1. You remember that game in 2017. That place was an absolute zoo. And it will be for this game too. Can he do it when the lights are the brightest? If they're not able to run the ball like they want to, and he's got to go out and win it, who wins that battle of the young quarterback, unproven wide receivers versus a brand new secondary for Miami? That's what it all kind of comes down to. Both teams really good in the trenches. Both teams have good running backs. Both teams have a lot of talent, but who wins the battle between the young quarterback and the inexperienced secondary to me?
I'll say this. I think this is kind of a wash, this game being at Miami. I think it'll be pretty dead even between these two fan bases. Notre Dame travels very well. This is a very different home opener than what Notre Dame experienced last year at Texas A&M, hostile territory. This just isn't that hostile of an environment. So it should set up both teams for a really competitive game. It is about 50-50 depending on what books you look at. But yeah, it is going to come down to how much has Carr developed, and is he prepared to be the reason they win?
I'll push back and just say whichever team runs the football more efficiently is the one that comes out on top.
Yep.
That to me is what it comes down to. Jordan Lyle, Mark Fletcher, Jeremiah Love, and Jadarian Price. Whoever does a better job of moving the sticks and giving their offense that second gust with the explosive plays, getting another fresh set of downs, they're the ones that are going to win this game.
A question here. We're running it. We're at 12:30, so I'll actually move on. Just a quick one though. Depth on defensive line for Notre Dame, is that a concern?
I'll know it when I see it. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, turnovers. I appreciate Michael for jumping in as well. Yeah, I mean, turnovers certainly going to play an impact if Beck tries to play hero ball or if Carr can't do it with the lights the brightest. Let's predict it, boys.
TJ, you're the ACC guy. You start.
Yeah, I hate to do this, but I'm leaning Miami on this one. Grounded out, low-scoring game. I just have a little bit more confidence in Beck, and I think coaching matters, but dudes matter too. I think Miami secondary does just enough. Maybe this is a pick where I want to be wrong in many situations, but ugly game, 20-18, Canes.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, 24-20. I trust the rushing attack. And I think that you will see Jaden Greathouse prove why he is the most slept-on wide receiver going into 2025. That will be the difference in this game.
Jeff Samardzija vibes for Greathouse for me. But you mentioned Quinn, so I had to go back. Go ahead, Tom.
He's destined for baseball then. Yeah, I like Notre Dame. Give me 21-14 in this one. I do think the running game is going to be a big factor, but I'm very curious to see which quarterback is in charge in this one.
I can appreciate we all took the under because we know this is going to be a very slow-paced game.
Yeah, watch it be 35-31.
Like that's normal.
35-31 final score coming just because we went 3 for 3 on this. It's like when the game day guys pick all the same team. All right, let's go to, this is Atlanta, right? South Carolina, Virginia Tech. Listen, Flursy's been part of these. I hate neutral site games to open things up, but we've got one here. ACC, SEC, South Carolina, Virginia Tech. Let's start with Cole since it's SEC on this one. Does Lenore Sellers just need to not do too much in this game and South Carolina will be just fine?
Well, it's going to be really interesting to see how Virginia Tech kind of combats whatever we see from this offensive personnel, because remember, this was one of the most hyped up teams last year going into 2024, 97% returning production. They had a veteran quarterback in Kyron Drones. They felt really confident in the offensive line. They felt really confident in the defensive front, and they proceed to lose to Vanderbilt in the house that Diego Pavio was quite literally building during the middle of the game. They had to stop construction because there was a football game going on, and they underachieved. They made entire differences the entire offseason. They went out into the portal. I feel like they upgraded at wide receiver a little bit. They brought in Cam Selden from Tennessee. They also changed their coordinators, which is going to be a night and day difference from the offensive and defensive personnel from a season ago that hindered their success. My question is it going to all gel together enough to go up against this front that is South Carolina's rushing attack? South Carolina did make an offensive coordinator switch. Dow Logans gets hired away to Appalachian State, and they internally promote Mike Shula. The thing that I've constantly heard around South Carolina this offseason from people that are around the program and are in the program is last year, Dow Logans brought out the best version of Lenore Sellers as a runner. This offseason, we've seen Mike Shula bring out the best version of Lenore Sellers as a passer. So what are we going to get in that passing game? We had an offseason for the first time where Nick Harbor wasn't running track. He was actually at the football facility working in spring drills. So he is going to have to step up as a wide receiver 1 against this front 7 headlined by Brent Pry and on the outside in the coverage. But who is going to be that number 2 weapon? Are we going to see the likes of potentially a breakout player like Michael Smith, the tight end that was a 4-star talent that came in 2 years ago? Are we going to see Jordan Dingle, the transfer that came on in from Kentucky? What about Mazeo Bennett? What about one of the freshmen, Malik Clark being a potential name that we could talk about? Lex Cyrus, we could talk about several others that I know are on this roster, and I know I'm blanking on them. Jared Brown's one that came back for another year. So can you get the ball in the receiver's hands at the right times? And then when the opportunity brings itself, can you tuck and run and not be afraid to pick up an extra 6 or 7 yards on the ground? The big storyline here in this game is Rasul Faison. So remember, going into practice this past week, we did not know the status of Faison. He didn't get the eligibility waiver up until Monday night. Monday afternoon rolls around, number 1 is going to be in the backfield. The thing that really is enticing about him is he is a do-it-all playmaker. He has every skill that you want in a 3-down back. He is good between the trenches. He's got that home run speed, and an underselling part of his game, he is phenomenal as a back-catching receiver and in pass protection. So it's like adding in another element to keep Lenore Sellers upright en route to what is supposed to be a very successful year. Now, on the flip side, what are we going to see from Kyron Drones? Is he going to have similar elements to a guy in Lenore Sellers with the mobility, with the uncanny cannon of an arm, and the ability to make plays behind the line of scrimmage that will keep second chances alive? This is a new defense. It's not a new defensive coordinator, and there are a lot of pieces back from that 9-3 team a season ago that finished top 20 in almost every single metric, but you are breaking in a lot of new players. You are breaking in a slew of new transfers, whether it be in the secondary or at linebacker or on the defensive line, and all of them are going to have to coexist early on in this game to where we don't know what to expect from the rushing attack in a brand new system for Virginia Tech. We don't know what to expect in the wide receiver room for Virginia Tech because of all of these pieces are so new. However, I do think that if you can get pressure and force Virginia Tech to win through the year, that is an area where potentially it could be a strength. I like Brandon Cisse now playing on the outside. I really am high on Jalen Kilgore having an all-SEC season. I think that you are still going to be fine at the safety spot. You don't have Nicky Manwari anymore, but you have some guys that you trust that can make plays like it's no one else's business. If they can control the line of scrimmage and force Kyron Drones to throw through the air, I think this is where you go into the fourth quarter. Maybe this is still a close game, but that's where you say, Rasul Faison, Lenore Sellers, do your job. Let's go ahead and walk away out of Atlanta with a dub. Saturday evening, we're heading back to Columbia. We're getting prepared for week 2.
I don't love this matchup for Virginia Tech, and I do worry for the Hokies just this entire season. I wonder if this is Brent Pry's last year at the helm for Virginia Tech. It does kind of feel like Kyron Drones against the world offensively, and I am curious to see what they're able to do in the running game. They lost a lot this past season when it came to graduation and the draft. I like what they can bring to the table on defense, potentially slowing down Sellers to a degree. Faison coming back for South Carolina, I think is fascinating. I just don't have a ton of faith in Virginia Tech, and I think this game might inflate what people think of South Carolina. So I'm going to go ahead and already make my pick. The line, I think I've seen according to some books, is 7.5. I like South Carolina 38-20 in this game. It's virtually home field advantage in Atlanta. It's a little bit of a drive, but you're going to have a lot more South Carolina fans. I might actually be in attendance at that game. I'm looking forward to it. But seriously, I think Lenore Sellers takes that step. Is he all of a sudden the greatest passer that ever lived? Remains to be seen, but I think he takes a step.
It's hard for me to imagine too many routes that don't involve South Carolina shooting themselves in the foot that keep Virginia Tech in this game long term, right? Like I'm not trying to be so down on them, but yeah, Brent Pry's on the hot seat. Weird things happen in week 1, but you're kind of like fishing for, man, how can this become a game? How can this be a game, right? Like, how can you stay around? And outside of South Carolina just continuously shooting themselves in the foot, or Kyron Drones just completely going off, right? Like with a mobile quarterback, a guy that's pretty dynamic, yeah, that possibility always exists. It's tough for me to see many paths for Virginia Tech in this one. So I'll predict it too. Yeah, give me South Carolina by, I don't know, I'll go 10. I'll say there's some weird week one flukiness. It is kind of a Beamer Bowl, quasi Beamer Bowl because of Shane's dad and then Shane being there some too. So I don't know, 38-28. Maybe Virginia Tech has a late touchdown to keep it somewhat respectable. But I don't, it's tough for me to even really think that they have what it takes in the trenches, that they have an answer for Stewart, that they have an answer for Sellers, that they have an answer for Faison coming in. I like South Carolina to cruise pretty easily here in Atlanta.
So I'm really intrigued to see what Philip Montgomery, who's the new offensive coordinator for Virginia Tech's offense, is going to look like. Remember, he had a lot of success when he was at Baylor for a while. He had a lot of success around the ACC. So what is he going to provide with this vertical passing approach, especially against a defense that is, again, breaking in a slew of new players on the back end of the secondary? However, I think that the big storyline for me in this game is going to have to be the intermediate throwing of Lenore Sellers. Sellers has got a can of an arm. I cannot stomach the people who say that Sellers can't throw the football. Like, turn on the freaking tape and you can see it clear as day that all the things are there. But he was, at times, very underwhelming in the intermediate part of the field. I do think that the wide receiver room is going to be a big question mark going into this season because of one thing that I really was interested in is watching them go out and bring in that veteran, that X-factor presence, the way that Penn State did, the way that we saw Auburn do it. And I think there was wide receivers out there that were talented enough to fit in the system without overshadowing what you had with Mazeo Bennett and what you had with Nick Harbor and what you had especially in the tight end game. But something about the way that I've heard the positivity coming out of Columbia, that this offense is going to look even better than what it did last year. Like, last season was stage one. Now we're entering, let's go ahead and tighten up the bolts and make sure that everything is squeaky clean. And then we're off to the races and we're flying down the field. I think that we're going to get more of that. I think that we're going to get that in the intermediate part of the field. This is going to be a close first half. I just trust what I get in Lenore Sellers and Rasul Faison in the second half. A couple big time throws downfield to Nick Harbor, Mazeo Bennett. I think that one of the freshman wide receivers is going to break on out. Tom and I have the exact same score, 38-20 final. I think that you will watch as Virginia Tech doesn't find a way to get anything moving in the second half. South Carolina does. They win.
Let's go to Waco. Is that where this game is? Waco, Texas?
Friday night. Weird things in the blackout on the Brazos.
Baylor versus Auburn. Listen, there's another Tigers versus Tigers matchup that one coach desperately needs to win. But is it a hot take to say that this might be the most, like, week ones typically aren't must wins, right? You got a lot of games left to figure things out. And Auburn could lose this game and figure things out for sure. This is the closest thing to a absolute must win, maybe of the, 74 games that'll be played from Thursday to Monday. This is the closest thing that I can find to a must win if you can have such a thing in week one. Is that a hot take, Cole?
I won't spend too much time on this because I know that Tom probably wants to get on this as well. It's not that it's a must-win for Auburn, and it's not even a must-win for Baylor, because Baylor, keep in mind, last season, people had already written the death certificate on Dave Aranda after the first 4 games, and then they proceeded to go 6-0 to close out the year behind a great offensive approach with Sawyer Robertson. But in my opinion, this is just a game that needs to happen, and you have to see the positivity because of what has been the entire story of the offseason. Everything that has gone wrong for Auburn continues to go wrong, and also, we're living in the past. Remember, just 2 weeks ago, we were talking about Auburn winning multiple national championships that they didn't technically win, they just claimed. So in the past. And then we throw in the Cam Newton Award that Cam is getting his number retired and nobody will ever don number 2 again on the Plains. Okay, cool. Living in the past. Now, why was that brought up? Because of right before, we were hearing about Hugh Freeze's golf game. We were hearing about the ineptitude of the offensive personnel. And then we heard about how there were 3 different play callers and that the third play caller could veto the play on first and second down. But the first down play caller is the offensive coordinator. That's the quarterback's coach. So it's like, just because of the offseason storylines and this player being injured and you not doing enough in the portal and you feeling like that it's a must-win year, no team needs to just get on a football field and no longer deal with the offseason storylines than Auburn. Now, if you lose this football game, but you lose in a close battle, it's not the end-all, be-all because there could be a lot of positivities, and maybe we just view Baylor in a prominent light as one of the biggest rising teams in the sport this year. But just to get on the football field and no longer have to deal with the offseason nonsense, nobody needs this more than Auburn.
I do think this is a must-win for Hugh Freeze and Auburn, much like I think the same for Brian Kelly and LSU opening up their season against Clemson. Like, these are important program-defining wins. These are things that the boosters are going to pay attention to, the fans are going to pay attention to, and all the reasons that Cole just outlined for all the hiccups along the way this offseason for Auburn. You have to start out strong. It's a road game. I understand that. I think this is going to be a high scoring affair. I think the line, according to a variety of sports books, over under of about 59.5. And I think Auburn is favored by about 2.5. So I like Auburn to win this thing. And simply, I like their skill players better than I like Baylor's. But I like Baylor's quarterback a lot better than I like whatever kid gloves Jackson Arnold is being treated with. I'm very curious to see how he looks on offense. Like, what is that really? Like, I want to see a couple games into the season, why did that come out of camp? Does he overreact when things go badly in the game? Does that ripple effect? Because he's certainly going to have the weapons to be able to burn you in the passing game. So curious to see what happens there. And then, all the play calling things, that was one of the weirdest things I'd ever heard, Cole, in terms of the way it gets separated by down. Baylor, they can bounce back from this, all the points Cole just said. It is a wide open Big 12. You can take hits and keep on moving. I don't think anybody's going to bat an eye that got beat by an SEC team in their house you're not thrilled about. But I think this is a must win for Auburn in a lot of ways. And sometimes that pressure can sneak up on you. I still am going to take Auburn in this by the thinnest of margins. Give me like 40-35.
Ooh, a lot of points. More points scored in this or Georgia Tech, Colorado? We'll get to that in a minute. But
I think
it's this. But that one could be, you could be having to, your thumb could get tired having to jump back and forth on those two games happening at the same time. Man, I'll go contrarian here. I think Baylor finds a way with their quarterback play. Also playing at home. I just don't have a lot of confidence in Auburn until I see it. It's kind of a prove it to me thing. So I do love Auburn's weapons. Somebody's got to throw Cam the ball, right? Like that's my concern is, can Arnold get it done on that side? I do wonder, Cole, and we'll ask and then maybe move off of this game a little bit, but is there a massive, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think this is a typical SEC versus Big 12 advantage in the trenches that you would typically expect. Like, I think Baylor does a fairly good job there, or am I wrong, right? Like, is that, so like if this was a traditional kind of Big 12 SEC matchup, I might lean the other way, but just thoughts on trench play there. But yeah, I'm taking the Bears in this one.
So I want to just make this clear. Auburn has one of the most underrated lines in college football going into the season. We do not talk enough about what Auburn has in its front five protecting its quarterback. We don't. And I love the addition of Xavier Chaplin. I love the addition of Mason Murphy. They got three guys with proven reps from last season. That being said, I want you to look at Baylor's offensive line. It's all seniors or juniors. They all have multiple years of starting experience. This is one of the more seasoned lines in college football that has played together in this offense underneath Jake Spavital. What's going to be interesting to me is, can they hold their own to create a balanced rushing attack for Bryson Washington in the backfield? Because remember, now with their backup running back out for the season, Washington is going to have to see a majority, if not all the carries, at least early on in signature matchups if you want to win against a great Auburn defensive line. Now, this is a brand new defense for Dave Aranda, and credit where credit's due. Dave realized last season, my defense sucked. My defense was dreadful. It cost me multiple games. I can't afford this to be in a year where I have got to prove on the field things are turning the tide at the right moment in Waco. But they were terrible against the run. Auburn ranked 72nd in run defense, ranked 114th in explosive plays allowed, and 94th in passing yards. Is this defensive line going to be more improved to be able to slow down the rushing attack of Damari Alston, to slow down the rushing attack of Washington, of Casey, what you have in that backfield, which is really important, I think, for Hugh Freeze if he wants his offense to take that next jump forward. The thing that I'm also looking for in this game is that if you are going to throw the football to Cam Coleman, who is going to be able to slow him down? I don't know enough about the Baylor secondary to where I feel confident that there is going to be a playmaker that can go toe-to-toe with a guy in Cam Coleman. Now, the other thing is also, you maybe want to take Cam Coleman out of the game and get Eric Singleton involved, or get Perry Thompson involved, or Malcolm Simmons involved, or your tight end play involved. That way you show that you're a multidimensional passing attack and you're not just relying on number 8 to go up for 6 points. And then on the flip side, I know what I'm getting in Sawyer Robertson, which is a gunslinger that is not afraid to let it fly. And sometimes that can be a little bit dangerous. but who is going to be that secondary playmaker to step on up and give a compliment to Josh Cameron, who was one of the better wide receivers in the Big 12 last year? Is it going to be Kobe Prentice that comes on in from Alabama? Is it going to be potentially Michael Trigg, the tight end that used to play his time at USC, and then he was also at Oklahoma? Are you going to get Ashton Hawkins, who got the waiver eligibility? Phenomenal first season out in Waco last year. 6 touchdowns. Is he going to be that guy? Cole Wilson comes on in from Texas State, his former Bobcat teammate. I'm very high on him being a wide receiver 5. Can you have that player that allows you to feel confident that if the rushing attack is not going, you can go toe-to-toe with this passing game? I like this passing unit. I like the weaponry down in Waco. And I like the fact that this is a blackout on the Brazos. For those of you that don't know anything about Texas football, those are games that Baylor plays at an unheralded, basically on cocaine and steroids type level of what you also throw in with a rabid mentality that allows them to set the tone for the rest of the season. They're bringing back the jerseys, and whether or not we like him as a person or as a commentator, you have the greatest quarterback to ever grace Waco, Texas, and Robert Griffin III calling the game. So naturally, you kind of want to show up for the person that has been here before and Beasley put Baylor on the map. I think Baylor wins this game. I think Baylor has the more overall balanced approach offensively. And I agree with Tom. I think this is going to be a very high-scoring game. I got 45-38 final.
Oh, I didn't give a score. Yeah, I'll go high as well. I'll make it a weird score, though, because every time I pick like a normal 17-21 game, it never happens. 39-37. Let's go real weird on that one.
Some safeties. Let's go.
We need a blocked extra point or something to really get things going. Shout out Michael Trigg from my alma mater, Sefner Christian Academy, one of the smaller schools in, I guess it's like 3A now, but really like a 1A level. The 1A levels are like the homeschoolers in Florida at this point. So shout out Michael Trigg. Yeah, go Bears. What do we have next? Oh, the Battle of the Orange. Orange.
A lot of orange. Orange team was winning that day.
Also in Atlanta. This one. Also.
They should, they should color rush these jerseys, but both wear the orange ones. Like it's light orange versus dark orange. Wouldn't be the most intriguing thing here. I think what everybody wants to know is how do the quarterbacks play? 2 new quarterbacks coming in. Aguilar first up. So Cole, I'll go with you, and then we'll come to Tom on this. But do you just try to ask Aguilar not to do too much in this game where you're a big favorite?
Yeah, this is the way I would describe a Peyton Thorne game. And what do I mean by that? Well, Peyton Thorne didn't have a spring practice and then had to be thrown into a starting role for Auburn a few years ago, and that went south. That's what you get for Steve Angeli at Syracuse, and that's what you get for Joey Aguilar. They didn't have a spring. They came in the summer. They won the starting job, which is a good thing because it shows that they are the best fit for the team. But this is also where you're kind of going and asking your supporting cast to kind of have a big-time moment. I think for Tennessee, people are kind of sleeping on Tennessee going into this year. I don't think that it is a team that is going to make a run to the college football playoff, but I also don't see them falling off the face of the earth and going 6-6. Like, they still have a great defense headlined by Tim Banks. They still have a solid offensive line that got better over time. And I really do like that this is going to be a year where we look back at circa 2022 Tennessee. Now, what do I mean by that? In 2022, Tennessee had multiple running backs that could easily be the number one. They had Jabari Small, they had Dylan Sampson, they had Jalen Wright, and they all split carries. Last season, it was the Dylan Sampson show, and if he did not get the engine rolling, then you didn't have a shot at winning a football game. So you're going to trust a Star Thomas, a Peyton Lewis, a Deshaun Bishop to be all three efficient enough to move the sticks in a timely manner and take pressure off of your quarterback. For Aguilar, just find yourself a number one wide receiver or find yourself a number one target that you can trust and build that continuity and familiarity with. I think that Miles Kitselman, Josh Heupel just reported today that he is going to be full go for this game, is massive. That could be a chain mover. You always find him on third down. He puts you in a position to where you get a fresh set of downs and you can open up the playbook. I think that you're going to have to see Mike Matthews, if he's fully healthy for this game, step on up and live up to the hype of what he was coming out of high school. They also have Travis Smith, who is a really good up-and-coming star, part of this last recruiting class. And Braylon Staley is back for another year, and the same thing goes for Chris Brazzell. Here's the thing that I really find interesting about wide receivers, specifically in a Josh Heupel offense. And you can look back at his time at UCF, but certainly at his time when he was at Tennessee. They never break out in year one. They always take a year to really hone in on what they're supposed to do before eventually hitting their stride. Look at what we saw from Jalen Hyatt. He was phenomenal, won the Biletnikoff Award, beat Alabama single-handedly. his first season was a dud in Knoxville. Look at what you saw with Brew McCoy. Brew McCoy was a really under the radar type of playmaker, and then year 2 hit. You talk about Cedric Tillman, another guy who hit his stride at the right time after his first season on campus. So I do think that you will watch as Chris Brazzell or Braylon Staley or Mikey Matthews all step on up and be that difference maker. For Steve Angeli, can you force 1 or 2 explosive plays that allows you to get the ball into Jonte Cook's hands? Cook, at one point, viewed as the next big-time threat at the University of Texas, ends up not working out there, goes to Washington, doesn't work out there, gets a third chance with a coach that I think a lot of people are buying into as a long-term guy with Fran Brown. And Fran Brown demands a certain level of respect and a certain level of play for you to make the team. Jonte Cook did that. From a talent standpoint, he may be the most talented player that steps foot on the field Saturday morning in Atlanta. He might, just simply based off of his potential. But you got to be able to get those explosive plays downfield. Steve Angeli, I think, faces a little bit more pressure because of this is an offense that he is still kind of learning on the fly with. And I think more specifically, you don't have the weaponry that Tennessee is going to have. Can you just win a few plays at the line of scrimmage where Tennessee kind of craters out and says, we're going for an all-out blitz? It leaves somebody in a one-on-one coverage downfield to any one of their receivers. I mean, we could talk about certainly names that aren't Trevor Pena because he's no longer there. You have Darren Gill back for another season. There's a few others I know I'm blanking off the top of my head. You do have, again, Jonte Cook. So there's a lot to like. Maybe it's going to be in the tight end position. You know, we talk about that being a big-time threat last season with Grande. You have Tremble back for another year. So can you get those explosive plays that allow you to set up maybe a couple of drives that end up giving you positioning going into half to where momentum plays on it? Because the thing that I worry the most about, the thing that I can tell you is going to be the difference maker in this matchup overall is, are we going to watch as Syracuse embodies the vision of Fran Brown? When a team takes on the identity of their coach, anything is possible, including an upset with a bunch of new pieces on this roster.
I love Fran Brown. I am completely in your camp with this one, Cole. I think this is fascinating in terms of the quarterback. Steve Angeli, let's not forget, is the dude who got passed over because they went and got Sam Hartman, got passed over again because they went and got Riley Leonard at Notre Dame. Let's not forget that Steve Angeli walked into the Orange Bowl last year, a little bit of time left there in the second quarter, and started throwing the pill around on what was a pretty good Penn State defense. And there were Penn State fans, myself included, that were like, I hope Leonard comes back in the game, because Angeli changed the way that their offense looked. It was more of a pro-style offense. I'm curious to see what they do this year, because with McCord, it was the air raid attack. I think to the points that Cole just made, he has the weapons to do that. I worry about the offensive line because it looks like probably 4 out of 5 are transfers. So I don't know how much time he's going to have. And I love what Tennessee consistently puts along the defensive line. So I fear for Syracuse in this game. I won't rule out the possibility of an upset if Aguilar completely blanks the bed in this situation. Again, this game's a neutral site. It's in Atlanta. There should be a lot more Tennessee orange than Syracuse orange. So this is an easier environment for Aguilar. And also the specter of Nico for Heupel, for Aguilar going into this game. Is that even something remotely that Aguilar is thinking about, that he has to go above and beyond to prove to the Vol Nation that he is the guy going forward? So for me, I still like Tennessee to win this thing. The spread is 13.5, which is pretty strong. I think they can still clear that. I wouldn't say it's going to be by a ton over that margin, but give me Tennessee 31-20.
My buddy Nate has been helping us out doing some of the production. He's a big Syracuse fan. He says the Orangemen are going to show the SEC how some old school Big East ball is played. And peanut butter and jelly is going for at least 400 yards. I don't share those sentiments, though I would like to see it. Just, Nate, appreciate all that you do and happy to give you a little shout out here. 30-21. I'll go Tennessee on this. Syracuse keeps it somewhat close.
Covers.
But I have a lot of trust in Heupel to not ask. Kind of Tom's big concern there. I have a lot of trust that they don't ask him to do too much, and I think they'll really lean on that ground game. And I just think the better athletes will end up taking over. So sorry to the slightly darker orange. Cole, score on this one.
This isn't a homerism pick. This isn't an SEC pick. This bottom line comes down to, what do I trust more? And the thing I trust the most is that I believe Tennessee's run game is still going to be one of the best in college football. They have 3 guys that can beat you. And so what is that going to do? It's going to eventually force Fran Brown to have to play in the box. He's going to have to try to slow down the run game. And there gets Joey Aguilar, who does have a great arm to let it fly downfield on one of his receivers. That's an easy 6 points. I actually think this is a close game going into the fourth quarter. I could see this being 20-20, but then you get the Joey Aguilar play. Then you get the connection. Lo and behold, I believe the Tennessee is winning this football game. I got 35-20.
Let's finish up on Friday night. Colorado, Georgia Tech. Coach Prime doing it without his son, doing it without Travis Hunter. Caden Salter named the starter this week, although that probably not too big of a surprise to anybody. And Georgia Tech, for the second year in a row, a really trendy pick for a lot of people to make it to Charlotte for the ACC championship. There's confidence on both sides of this. What say you, Cole Thompson?
Oh God, you're gonna go to me. Here's what I'm really interested in. I've been talking way too much today. I apologize to all of our listeners and viewers. The thing that I'm really interested in, what is this Colorado team now without Shedeur and Travis Hunter? It's not a negative either. I think that Colorado could be one of the more complete teams in college football by the time that we get to the season's end, just because of that you're not relying on a Heisman Trophy winner and a guy who was not only the coach's son, but probably one of the more slept-on quarterbacks nationally in college football last year. We talked about him a lot, but I don't think we looked at the numbers and saw just how talented of a player he was. You're replacing those two, but that doesn't mean you're replacing the aura and the intensity of this locker room. I really like what they have in Omarion Miller as a wide receiver number 1. I think he is going to be a breakout player. I do think that you are going to see Caden Salter kind of take that next step forward. I didn't like the way that he ended last season with Jamie Chadwell, but you got to remember, if we get the version we saw in 2023, that was a coach that that was a player that not only took his team to an undefeated regular season, but also a New Year's Six bowl game. And he is going to have, I think, a better weaponry than he had at Liberty last season. No offense, TJ, but still, it's his bottom line. That's the type of talent that you bring into Colorado because of Deion Sanders' name. The thing that I wonder about most specifically is what is this defense going to look like now with a bunch of new pieces coming on in. They landed Jaheim Otis from Alabama, really good name. Can you stop the run? Can you be able to force a guy in Haynes King that is a good passer, not a great passer, but a good passer, throw the football down the field? You no longer have Eric Singleton, but you still have Malik Rutherford. You still have Dane Patterson that comes on in from FIU. And you have a top 10 wide receiver from my liking in Eric Rivers that came in from FIU that doesn't get enough respect. Just like Jamal Haynes doesn't get enough respect out of the backfield. Jamal Haynes is a top 7 running back in the sport. I love his tape. I love the physicality. He plays the way that you want. He's built like a tight end that knows how to run the football, but he also has great hands, so he can win in pass protection. He also can win out of the backfield as a playmaker. But if you can slow down the rushing attack, because it's not just going to be Jamal Haynes, it's also going to be Haynes King. It's going to go left. It's going to go right. Can you force them to throw the football? This could be a really interesting matchup because if I do think the Colorado secondary is going to be more polished, I do think that their linebacking play, albeit new, is unknown, which could be a good thing. And that could lead you into making mistakes if you are Georgia Tech. So if you can slow down the run, I think that you're in a very good spot for Colorado's defense. Now all you got to do is find that secondary weapon for the offense that's going to be able to take some pressure off of a guy in Omarion Miller.
Point blank for me, I think Georgia Tech knows exactly who they are. Colorado is going to figure out who they are. So give me Georgia Tech on the road to cover. I need to look at the spread here in a moment, and I'll think about a score. But still, for me, I like that Caden Salter's the guy. I like this new opportunity for him. And I think teams inherently change when you lose alpha players. And what I mean by that is, yes, they can be a little bit worse, but also when you have those standout guys, especially at the college level, Big 12 level, you are going to focus a lot more heavily on them, and you're going to ignore other parts of your offense, of your defense, regardless of where they are. I think Travis Hunter got a ton of focus from Shedeur Sanders, from the offense last year. Shedeur Sanders obviously was the center of the universe for all things Colorado. This is just going to be different because it's not that situation where, well, we know it's going to 12. Now you have to cover a lot more. I still think Brent Key and company are prepared to play that type of football and will be ready for that. The law firm of Haynes and Haynes, I still love. I am worried about the receiving core that they have. Eric Rivers being potentially the guy. Okay, you're trying to prove something in general in that department, but I like what Georgia Tech has. So give me the Jackets on the road.
Two big things for me in this one. as somebody who watched it live and in person last year in Dublin, and then watched it again in their bigger games where they were mostly healthy. One is the health of Haynes King. He will be healthier in this game than he is any other game for the season because that's how college football works outside of something stupid happening over the next 2 days. He will be incredibly healthy, and that's bad news for Colorado, in my opinion. When he was banged up, that's when they took a lot of their losses, and that's why they lost games that they absolutely had no reason losing last year after beating Florida State, beating Miami, taking Georgia to the brink, all these things. When he's at his best, they are really tough. What makes them so difficult, and what was so frustrating watching live in person, was they are always ahead of the chains. Like 98% of the time, they're ahead of the chains. And that's because they run the ball so effectively and so efficiently. Brent Key being an offensive line guy, it bodes so well for them and the style of play that they want to implement. And yes, I've got questions about their wide receivers. That's very valid. But they're always in 3rd and 3, man. They're always in 2nd and 4. And so it's just like, when they stay ahead of the chains, they're not passing the ball down your throat. They're not taking massive shots down the field. You're looking at 8-9 minute drives at times for Georgia Tech. And then Colorado comes out and say they find a Salter to Hakeem, a Florida State transfer, or Miller or whomever. Say they find a long completion for a touchdown and tie it up immediately. You're out there for another 6 to 8 minutes because of this just insane Georgia Tech rushing attack. Those two things, Haynes King's health and Colorado's rushing attack and staying ahead of the chains, are so big to me. If Colorado, and this is a big ask, if they can limit, because I don't think they can stop it. I don't think many teams can stop it. If they can limit Georgia Tech's running ability and their running attack, that is their key to victory. That's their successful path to getting the win, an upset win at home against Georgia Tech. I don't see many teams doing that, right? Yeah, Georgia probably later in the year. Clemson, yes, probably will have more success. I don't know that I have the confidence in Colorado to be able to do that yet. They prove me wrong. They'll win the game. I'm outside of a 3 turnover day by either quarterback. Yeah, I think they'll win if they can limit the run. I just don't know that I buy it just yet. So I'll take Georgia Tech in a close one. I don't think this is a runaway. I don't think that's Georgia Tech's style. I don't know. Yeah, give me a fair amount of points, 27-24. Close one for Georgia Tech.
This comes down to 2 main elements for me, but it's the explosive plays for Colorado and the non-explosive plays for Georgia Tech. This is a new defense coordinator. One of the more underrated moves this offseason that wasn't talked about enough. Ty Santucci goes to the NFL. Blake Gideon is hired as the new DC from Texas. So it is a defensive backs coach. Can you eliminate the explosive plays from Caden Salter or Juju Lewis? Make them play a non-tempo game. Make them be able to have to slow things down. And if they cannot win at the line of scrimmage, they're trying to go ahead and force some stuff downfield that allows Georgia Tech to get out of trouble and get the ball back into the offense. On the opposing side, can you force a Georgia Tech team to play can you force Georgia Tech to play with that vertical passing attack? Because if this is going to be a rock fight, this is going to be a dogfight in the trenches. Georgia Tech is going to maul all over Colorado's front seven. Not to say that Colorado's front seven can't get there at some point. It's just right here in the now. I know what I'm getting in this ground and pound rushing attack. And I love the name Haynes and Haynes Law Firm. That is I want that on a t-shirt. And I think I need that on a t-shirt because of, unfortunately, I'm going to have to pick this game in favor of a team that I have in the college football playoff, because if I have another team that I picked in the college football playoff, I just trust that I'm going to see Jamal Haynes and Haynes King go off. I just think that we're going to get Eric Rivers to get that big time play. If that happens, this is going to be a very slow moving, but also a very promising game. I'm actually against TJ. I do not think this is going to be a high scoring game. I got 24-17 final score. I think you get one. I'm at a 24-13 final score. I think you get one more touchdown, one extra field goal. If you are Georgia Tech, they're going to run down the clock and force Colorado to win with the explosive plays. I just think it's going to happen. Doesn't mean Omarion Miller is going to be a breakout player, because I do think he is going to be a stud by the time we get to December. It's just not going to happen in week 1. And that happens for some teams.
Give me Tech 27-20. I didn't give a score there before. Sorry.
Yeah, we're all below 30. I don't think it's that high scoring. I guess I went mid scoring, right? 27-24. What's that? 51 point. Yeah, it's 51 points. It's like an NFL game. All right, that's what we got for this week. Little overtime, but man, it's back tomorrow, boys. These last 4 days have been truly hell without it. So I don't know how I've survived.
All is right in the world.
tomorrow I don't have to survive anymore. TJ Pittinger, Cole Thompson, Tom Hannifan. All the social medias are in the description. Make sure that you're subscribed. We will talk about all these games and, of course, week 2 stuff next week on Monday. Boys, have a fun weekend.